Welcome to Steps to another CoH2 replay cast. This time we're going to be having a 4v4 featuring El Tirador, who sent in the replay, playing as the Soviets. And we also have his own allies, Panzer Talon Division X or 10, Black Talon, of course British and Soviets, and one more Soviet, Moko. And on the enemy team we're going to have Julkaz playing as Wehrmacht, already choosing Spearhead, VNXLO playing as the OKW and getting a second Storm Pioneer, Schnuggler, who is AFK, and Jorad, who is playing as the OKW. So, Steps. Very, very big map, with a very wide front. Of course, it very much favors quick tanks, good flanking maneuvers, and in general, good usage of artillery, because it is not a map where the spots in which people are going to camp are too obvious. Of course, there is the island, which is of course always very contested between a lot of players, and the center fuel point is also a very blood-filled point, because over here, of course, a lot of people are going to fight, and there's a lot of cover on both ends with two ridges, and then in the north is usually the least contested area with two VPs and two munitions points. That is usually the terrain of harassment as such. So we're going to have a bit of a push over here by Division 10 with his infantry sections, and he's going to bring up his Vickers machine gun up here to the ridge, likely, along with a Bren carrier that he's building, likely to just attempt to harass the enemy in the center, while their own allies, it looks like we have one person going north, that is Black Talon with a tier 1 opening and a scout car already on the field, and in the south we have two people, so we have El Tirador with conscripts and a Maxim, so tier 2 for him, and his own ally Moko, who also went for tier 2, so we're going to have a lot of machine guns for the Germans to contend with in the south. So this might not be the easiest little fight for the Germans in this area, but it does look like the Germans have managed to at least get to the points before their enemies. Other than in the north, pretty much the Germans have capped the points before the Allies could get to them, but looks like at least the Vickers in the center will be able to force back the Storm Pioneers from the OKW player, and this will be countered by a sniper from Schnuggler, who has chosen close air support, so that is very interesting. In the south, we do have a bit of a push by El Tirador, managing to force the MG42 to reposition, but it will not be enough, especially as this Maxim is going to be caught by an MG42 and forced to retreat fairly easily for the Germans, so at least a little bit of a machine gun advantage for the Germans on the south. Now, double sniper by Schnuggler, very interesting opening, of course, can be used with great effect on this map, as it is a very open, very long lines of retreat, so it takes a while to get back on the field after you've been forced to retreat by a sniper. And yeah, if you can use the snipers correctly, of course, you should also be very careful about this Bren carrier and the scout car over here. So we're going to see how he manages to micro-guide unit. Now, we have a bit of a push over here in the south by the Germans, who have managed to repel one of the machine guns earlier, but they're also managing to do some good damage against Moko's second machine gun. And also, Moko's bringing up a mortar, which is now in range, but I don't think the mortar will be able to make much of a difference in this fight, especially as there's Pioneers already on the way to force it away. Now, the Pioneers will likely not be able to take out the mortar squad, because the mortar squad simply has too many men, but at least it will force it to reposition a little bit and disrupt its fire. Now, we have a bit of a chase over here in the center by the scout car against Schnuggler's sniper. Looks like one of the snipers already died, and the second one is on the run for its life. Unfortunately for the Soviets, he decided to not chase, even though he could have definitely destroyed that sniper. He only had about 10% HP left. So I'm trying to find the body of the second sniper that died, but I don't see him. But I clearly see that there's no sniper. Wait, what? Oh, because he moved in the south, because I was looking for the little icon on the minimap and around this area, but it looks like the sniper went south. Now, we have a pretty big push of the Soviet player in the north. Over here, Black Talon, who did go for Lend-Lease doctrine, is pretty much in full control of the north. He's got one fuel cache to contend with, but overall he's managed to pretty much secure the north for the Allies, and that's really good, as they will have double munitions to the Germans' 0. So that is going to be really good. And also the Allies, because of this, have also managed to put up a lot of pressure in the center. Now, one of the scout cars went down, and the second scout car is also going down because of Raketenwerfer. Looks like Raketenwerfer is going to take a satchel charge, almost destroying it. So that was a really good play by Black Talon, getting out that satchel charge from his penal battalion onto a unit that wasn't being micro very correctly at all. Now, a bit of a push in the south from the Germans, who have finally managed, it looks like, to push the Allies back across the river from the south, and they will be able to secure the fuel point. Unfortunately, a Maxim will be able to defend the strategic point in the stream, but second, looks like, attempt at a pushback will be from these Grenadiers. Unfortunately, in negative cover, they will take a huge amount of damage and almost get wiped. Really lucky that the conscripts didn't really get any more shots on target, or else they would have definitely died. Now in the center, it looks like a Brand Carrier is being Panzerfausted, but we also have the Vickers upgrade on it, which means that the loss of this Brand Carrier will be quite painful for Division 10, and we also have a Mortar Pit out of him. Now the Mortar Pit is going to be really useful to dislodge these machine guns that the Germans are trying to bring up to push back the Allies. It will also be really useful against the Sniper, believe it or not, because of course once the Sniper fires and the Mortar tries to respond, the Sniper will have to reposition pretty much every time to prevent the Mortar from sniping itself. Now we have a double Scout Car by Schnuggler. Schnuggler with the close air support will be very useful in the late game to the German team as a more of a supportive player with airstrikes all over the map, but already in the early game he's started to establish himself as a support player. Of course, getting out the Scout Cars will be very helpful because of the mobility that he will have. Now, the Allies, Division 10 is the one that's most thin on units, but looks like he's trying to rectify that situation. He hasn't really upgraded any real major tech. He's gone for tier 1, but hasn't really gotten anything big out of it. He only went for the mortar as a sort of big tech unit, but the mortar will be in danger soon enough from the Scout Cars. The Scout Cars are very effective against the emplacements of the British, so he will have to defend that mortar with a little bit more than just a couple of units. Of course, we also have a forward assembly out of him, which explains the lack of manpower that he does have. He went for Mobile Assault Regiment, which is a fairly interesting commander. Now, I don't really agree with it, especially on this map, especially when he doesn't have that much manpower to work with, because I just don't think the infiltration commandos are worth the expense. Now, the land mattress, however, is really good, and especially against an enemy that is throttling down increasingly in one area, it will be very useful for Division 10 to have that land mattress artillery piece. Now, Black Talon with the Lend-Lease will have a very nice presence in the late game with M4C Shermans as a sort of a mobile assault with medium tanks. Now, in the south we have a bit of a push from the Allies, but looks like they will be repulsed by the CG-42 along with these Grenadiers. Good plays by the Germans in holding the south side of the map, but they should definitely attempt to make some more harassing moves in the north, because they've definitely been allowing the Allies to gain the upper hand over here. Now we have a Dish Cup HMG from Black Talon, which is facing the wrong way, it seems, and Division 10 is going to be replaced by AI after his mortar pit is destroyed and his his units are being pushed back to the forward assembly point. Now, good job by Black Talon stealing this Raketenwerfer from the enemy. Don't want to be doing that at all. And the Raketenwerfer will be very useful to take out these Scout Cars if we can manage to set it up correctly. And one of the Scout Cars is even got a main gun destroyed, so he might be in very big trouble. One of the Scout Cars goes down from a excellently placed rocket from the Raketenwerfer. So that was a really good play by Black Talon. Getting out that push was definitely very important for him to rescue the AI from jaws of the German player. Now, Jorad is also starting to lose a lot of units, as you can see. Over here, Jorad is the player in the north for the Germans, and he's got a Schwer Panzer headquarters in the base because he was pretty much pushed back to the base by the Black Talon. And the forward placement of the Schwer in this sort of area could have been really useful as a sort of way to hold out a little bit more territory, but it would have also been very risky. So the placement in the base is still pretty good. We will see what he decides to get out of that tier 4 structure. The Germans don't really have that much fuel to work with because the south wasn't really under their control for the entire time, and the center was in the control of the allies for most of the game. Now, Moko went for the shock army, which is a fairly decent commander because of the howitzer and also the 120mm mortar. So it is a very dangerous commander in terms of artillery. Looks like he only has a 82mm mortar now, and he's going for a M5 half-track with probably he's going to go for the upgrade, as he does have a lot of munitions. Using it as a sort of a suppression unit could be very useful for him. And now we have a couple of mines from him in a very precarious position. Yeah, exactly what I was gonna say. If some kind of stray artillery piece decides to hit it, it would blow up both the mines, and that would have been the end of that. We have some guards riflemen out of Tirador who went for guards rifle combined arms, and this commander is not really seen that much because it's kind of contradictory in that it gets hit to dirt for the conscripts as well as this assault package for the conscripts, which doesn't really work out in synergy all too well. And also the guards can be useful, but they're not as good as they used to be because they were nerfed a few months ago. Of course, the artillery piece is also present in this commander, and the L2 Sturmovik attacks are pretty much shared. So actually the latter half of the tree is fairly similar to the shock army. Now, we have a pretty big purchase for the Germans, the Stuka, which does have 7 kills already, killing a mortar, it sounds like. What did it kill? Oh god, that smoke lag. Yeah, it looks like a mortar. That looks like a support weapon. Cool. So the Stuka will be a very good tool for the Germans to push back the Allies in this area if the Allies keep bombing like that. Now, we have a pretty big assault by Black Talon in the center, but he's running headlong into a machine gun, which is definitely not the best course of action, but looks like his own machine guns from the back are covering him, along with their Kettenwerfer. I'm not really sure what their Kettenwerfer is doing there, but the pinning of the penals will definitely signal the end of that assault. Now, I don't think the Germans will be able to capitalize upon this at all because of the... No, okay. He retreats the Dushka for no apparent reason. Would have definitely kept it there if I was him. Would have pretty easily held the territory for him. But we do have a good push in the south by the Allies. Looks like the S-mine field that was placed over here by Gurkhat is not in a very good position. We do have a bit of a push by Mako in the center, sort of center part of the island, taking the victory point without any sort of issue because of the German player over here, the NXLL, being pushed back later. Now, we have some AI troops attempting to destroy the scout army. That will not go very well at all because of the lack of AT grenades of the sappers, of course. Now, a Vec 2 Maxim will be a very big obstacle for the German players in the south, but unfortunately for the Allies, we have a pretty huge amount of artillery from the Germans, especially light artillery over here. 3 more half-tracks, which are up to, looks like, 22 kills, and a support gun, which is also going to be a big pain for the Allies. We also have a battle group headquarters by VNXLO and a mechanized version headquarters by him. He's going to have enough resources for a Schwer Panther headquarters fairly soon. And I do expect them to be going for a King Tiger at this point after the Stuka. Doesn't really look like the Allies have much in terms of armor. We do have a SU76 on the field by Tirador, but it's getting canned across the south. The half-track is being used to reinforce the troops in the front line and not as a suppression unit. We also have a T70 out by Mako. Now, Moko with the T70 definitely a really good decision because at this late moment of the game, T70 is not exactly the most, let's say, cost-effective unit because it's 70 fuel, and the T34, which is only 1 building later, is 80 fuel, yet it can do pretty much everything the T70 does except, well, the recon mode, and still have a lot more firepower against vehicles and a lot more survivability, so that is why T70 loses in cost effectiveness later on. Now, the Stuka is starting to fire again. It was being kept about firing for a while. Now, with Guard Squad being completely annihilated by the Stuka, so Elterdar would have to be paying a lot more attention from the Stuka. Would have definitely been saved by timely retreat in that situation, but unfortunately that was not to be. Now, a second Su-76 is on the field by him. Definitely agree with the decision of getting a lot of Su-76s. especially if he's trying to bridge the gap to some kind of late game unit like the artillery and trying to play a more defensive game. The SU76 is already a pretty good decision, where it's pretty much the really good cost effectiveness and really good penetration against medium armor. So it looks like a demo charge was placed by Moko in the north, or rather in the south. Of course, it's going to be destroyed by the more half-tracks. Again, Moko should be very careful about where he places his own explosive traps, because as you can see, both the mines and the demo charges are starting to be destroyed fairly easily. Now, we have a Centaur by KI, which is going to be fairly useful. Now, Black Talon is starting to save up a lot of resources for the M4C Shermans. I don't completely agree with the decision. I do believe that perhaps getting out another Dushka machine gun with his own excess manpower would be very useful for him. We also have the fact that even if you have the access to the M4C Sherman, you still might want to check up with at least tier 3 just to get out early vehicles, but we'll see if how he can deal without having those T-70s and SU-76s. Now, we have a pretty successful, it looks like, push by the Germans, who have managed to recapture the fuel point in the south, but they're also starting to run into a lot of Maxim walls, and also the T-70s are in the field. We'll see what the T-70s are doing. They have a second M5 half-track by Moko. Not really sure what that's supposed to be about now. A pretty, actually interesting T-70 push. There's really nothing that the Germans have in position to counter it except this one counter squad and the AP round toting MG34. Now, T-70s are attempting to push up against the Stuka. It looks like one of the mortar half-tracks goes down. One of the T-70s is going down from the Panzerschreck fire, and looks like the Panzerschrecks are trying to get the line on this one last shot. As he's reloading, he might actually be able to escape with the T-70's life. One maximum range shot is going to hit, and the T-70 goes down. So, a pretty even exchange, it looks like. I mean, the Germans have lost ground, a Kugelwagen, and a mortar half-track, but the Allies have lost the T-70, which in terms of resources is more. Of course, in terms of ground, though, the Allies have managed to get a lot of disruption on the German defenses, and they will be able to push up fairly easily with their own infantry if they manage to bring up their infantry quick enough. And we have a nice Maxim going to be saving these T-70s from the clutches of these Panzerschrecks in a fairly spectacular manner, with pretty much no HP left. Wait, what is this bug? It shows the health of the squad as being equal to the health of the actual gun, even though the health of the squad is basically nothing. So that is very interesting of a bug. Whatever. We have a bit of an attempt by the Germans to recapture the north with Schlegler's Grenadiers, which is good. He's also going for a Panther. Now, he should definitely retreat the squad. It's going to get wiped fairly easily by the Flamethrowers. Now, Schlegler going for the Panther is probably a pretty good decision, because the Germans right now really lack any sort of medium or heavy armor, and now pretty good play by the SU76 finding the Stuka completely unawares and going to be destroying it fairly easily. So that was a nice cache by El Tirador. We have a nice SU76 barrage being called down on these reinforcing Volksgrenadiers, being very underwhelming though, and very unlucky. Nice grenade by the guards, taking out pretty much the entirety of the two squads. And we also have a nice secondary push over here by Black Talon, who has managed to pretty much make his presence felt across the entire map, which is a really good thing for him. Now, it looks like one of these Bet2 Pinos is going to go down, which is a very big loss for Black Talon. He's going to have the M4C Shermans unlocked soon, though, so that will be very good. He will be able to call off, looks like 4 M4C Shermans before he runs out of resources, which is really good for him. More of our troops have been lost. I really don't know who lost his troops, but whatever. So, a stolen support gun dealing a little bit of damage against the Thousand Headquarters. What could the Germans be doing differently? Because right now they're really starting to get pushed back into the base. Now, definitely play a little bit more across the entire map. Now, the only one who's been doing that is Schlegler, who has gone for a Panther and a little bit more of a mobile group with the 222s. And he's the only one who's been harassing the north for the Germans. Whereas all the other German players are pretty much just focusing on the south, which has allowed an AI even to just secure the center and allow the Black Talon to pretty much do whatever he wants, both in the south and in the north, supporting his allies and recapturing the territory in the north as he wills, and has pretty much allowed the allies to get complete resource superiority, and has allowed them to pretty much out-tech and outgun the Germans at every turn, which is a bit of a problem because right now VNXLO is only now getting his fair Panzer headquarters at 20 minutes into the game, which is definitely a bit too late. Now we have an M4C Sherman over here by the Black Talon, and it looks like one of the Panthers hit a mine. Never pushed without minesweeper support. Of course, he did have a minesweeper around there, but he pushed without it, which is definitely really bad. And nice play with the M4C Sherman getting out in the bath and destroying the Panther, which was pretty much crippled by the mine. Now, looks like this Grenadier Squad attempting to Panzerfaust and finish off the Sherman is going to fall short of the mark by just a little bit, and is going to allow the Sherman to limp back to base to the embracing arms of the engineers that are going to repair it. Now, in the south, the Allies have managed to pretty much secure the island, and they also have a little bit of maximum support over here, and Stangler is going to rage quit, which is very unfortunate. And again, Moko, main mistake right now is definitely the placement of his traps. He should definitely not be using them so clumped up. And I mean, the Panther is going to run in and take a lot of damage from all of them, but again, you don't want to be clumping them up because then something that makes them explode might make them explode without any kind of result from that. Now, pretty good finishing of the Panther up by the SU76s. One SU76 is already up to bed 2. We have 4 SU76s by El Tirador, who's also calling out some Stormwind strikes against the German infantry, which is definitely going to help suppress them. A little bit of damage also being brought in by the half-track over here. One of the half-tracks has been upgraded to the quad and is being used as a suppression unit, but he will run into a wall of AT guns, which is a bit of a problem, and he will suffer the consequences for it. Now we have a Tiger unlocked by Drupaz, who has Spearhead, but I don't think this will be enough to turn the tide of the battle, as the Allies do have a complete superiority in armor at this point, and also superiority in Ps. Pretty much 499 to 58. There's really nothing the Germans can do right now with one player down. So remember, Schnuggler just rage quit from the game, which is a bit of a problem for the Axis. And again, the 3 M4C Shermans that are operational for Black Talon are starting to come back in the south. Really good play by Black Talon. He has been all over the map. Unlike his own opponents, he's been all over the map, just helping out his allies and doing all he can to support in all manner of pushes. So that is a really good play that has allowed the allies local superiority pretty much everywhere around the map, thanks to his good maneuvering skills. And we have a pretty good flank by the M4C Sherman. We're going to be hit by this one path, Ben 1, not really using the target weak point because of the lack of munitions, but still doing a lot of damage to the Shermans nonetheless. Now, good SU76 barrage is going to deal with this attack gun, and also it looks like it will be enough to provide some cover for the Shermans to escape. Actually, didn't know that there was a little spot of land over here that the Shermans would walk on, but the second M4C is going to take a little bit of Panzer fire as he retreats, but it will not be enough to destroy it, I don't think, as the Sherman will be able to retreat fairly easily. And yeah, this was a pretty good game. Now, what could the Germans have done differently other than playing a little bit more as a team and with a lot more harassment? Definitely in the south, they should have attempted to fortify a little bit better. They just allowed the Allies to recover their pretty much the lost ground, even though they haven't managed to catch up to the river because of a little bit of a looks like miscalculation in terms of what the Allies could bring. They really didn't think that the Allies could come back with so much infantry and support weapons to ruin their day. A little bit of a unit preservation problem by all the German players is also kind of felt. Perhaps doctrine selection could have been different. Close air support didn't really do much, as did the fortifications doctrines. Those were two wasted doctrines. The spearhead was used to good effect with the mortar half-tracks. Perhaps 3 mortar half-tracks is a bit too much, but at the same time, he at least uses commander. And over here, special operations for VNXLO definitely wasn't used at all. Other than that, perhaps a bit better technical choices would have been better. It looks like every German player decided to go for the late game, except for VNXLO getting out of Stuka, which was the only vehicle, only mid-game vehicle that was brought out by the Germans. which is a bit of a shame, as a couple of Panzer IVs would have definitely helped out in the south and in the center. Other than that, it doesn't really look like the Germans could have done much differently. Talking about the Allies, well, Division 10, they're going for a little bit too much in terms of non-combat units. He went for a 400 manpower mortar and a 300 plus 200 manpower for the assembly. No, maybe 200. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's about 500, 600 manpower for the upgraded for assembly. So that is about 1,000 manpower in units that were not fighting. And that pretty much allowed the Germans in the center to push up to pretty much to the base, and by the base I mean the forward assembly, and destroy all of his units. Now, Black Talon, perhaps his main mistake was not getting a tier 3 out on the field earlier, which would have definitely helped out in the north a little bit with the T-70 as a counter-harassment unit, and perhaps an SU76 or 2 to support the M4C Shermans in the south and in the center. But other than that, he played fairly well. Going for the tier 1 was justified in that he later got to tier 2. Going for tier 1 without later taking also to tier 2 is very risky, but he went for both, so that is really good, and I definitely agree with that. Now, Moko going for too many tier 3 units, 2 T-70s and 2 M5 half-tracks was definitely a bit too much. Good doctrine selection though, he used his own infantry correctly from what I've seen, and he's used the L2 Stormovich strikes a little bit as well, so that's good. El Tirador, really nothing to say. It looks like he lost a lot of SU76s, perhaps 3 or 4. No, I'm looking at the wrong person. 4 SU76s now. The Su-76 is an easy vehicle to lose, but perhaps you should be working on a little bit of that, and also you should have been paying a lot more attention to the Stuka strikes, because I remember that he was the one that took the most casualties from that. Now the Tiger is taking a lot of damage. It's going to be excellently flanked by Black Talon. This is why I love the M4C Shermans. They just do the flanking game at the best of their abilities, pretty much unstoppable in terms of flanking ability, because the Shermans have a lot of speed and mobility, and also the M4Cs have a particularly good gun for a Sherman tank, both against infantry and against vehicles, and also they have the 50 cal, which is pretty much unique to this tank as a Soviet medium, because the two other Soviet medium tanks, the T-34 and the T-34-85, don't have a machine gun pintle mounted. So having that machine gun just provides that extra awesome anti-infantry power in the flanking maneuver, because when it is flanking, the tank will not be too accurate with its main gun because it's moving, but of course against infantry it's even less accurate than against vehicles. But with the machine gun, it's no problem pretty much, because it still is going to do a lot of damage to passing by infantry. So yes, that is pretty much it for the game. Good hammer and anvil play by the Allies, with the Shermans being the hammer. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the cast, I hope you learned something from it, and I hope I'll see you soon.